I flew to Los Angeles without warning, dreaming of a joyful reunion, only to find my daughter alone, fighting for her life in intensive care. Meanwhile, her husband was partying on a luxury yacht, spending my money on champagne and entertainment. Furious at his betrayal, I left him destitute. An hour later, he lost his mind, and that was just the beginning. I pulled out my phone as the plane began its descent into LAX, fingers shaking slightly as I typed, "Landing in 20 minutes. This will be the best surprise of her life." Pressing. Send felt like sealing a promise I intended to keep. 3 years. Far too long. The photograph in my wallet had softened at the edges from constant handling, Matilda laughing in her kitchen, flour dusting her dark hair. Emma grinning with a missing front tooth. Little Jack holding up a crayon masterpiece. I had stared at it every day since Martha passed, but today felt different. Today, I was finally acting on the ache in my chest. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our final approach into Los Angeles International Airport," the pilot announced. My worn hands gripped the armrests as a familiar thrill coursed through me. The last time I had surprised anyone was Martha's 50th birthday. That felt like another lifetime. 5 years of grief had made me a stranger, even to my own daughter. Yet Matilda's voice from our last call 3 months ago kept echoing, "I'm just tired, Dad, really tired." Something in her tone lingered, gnawing at my thoughts. The baggage carousel hummed as I waited, watching other families reunite. A young mother scooped a toddler into her arms. An elderly couple embraced their son. Soon it would be me and Matilda, except she had no idea I was coming. "Studio City, please," I told the Uber driver, showing him the address on my phone. "Going to see my daughter. She doesn't know I'm coming." "Surprise visits are the best," he replied in his accent, pulling into LAX traffic. "My family in Guatemala loves when I show up unannounced." The freeway stretched endlessly ahead, palm trees swaying in the April breeze. LA looked exactly as I remembered. Sprawling, sun-soaked, nothing like the small Texas town where I had raised Matilda. She had always been drawn to bigger things, brighter lights. Martha used to say our daughter got her adventurous spirit from me back when I still believed in taking risks. I tried calling Matilda twice during the drive, finger hovering over her contact, then hanging up both times. No, better to surprise her in person. The look on her face would make the 4-hour flight and my aching back worthwhile. "This the place?" The driver pulled up to a tidy house with white shutters and a small front garden. Perfect. I handed him cash, grabbed my overnight bag, and stood on the sidewalk as he drove away. The afternoon sun felt warm on my shoulders as I approached the front door, rehearsing what I might say. Perhaps a joke about her old dad finally figuring out airline websites. Or maybe I would simply open my arms and wait for her to run into them, like when she was 8. I reached into my bag and pulled out the small gift I had brought. A hand-carved wooden jewelry box I had made in my garage, meant to keep her grandmother's ring safe until Emma was old enough. Martha would have loved seeing it passed down. The doorbell waited beneath my finger, and for a moment I lingered, savoring the anticipation. 3 years of phone calls and texts were about to turn into real hugs, shared meals, and stories told face to face. I pressed the button and heard the familiar chime echo inside. Then silence. I pressed it again, holding it longer this time. The chime rang through what sounded like an empty house, followed by the same hollow quiet. "Matilda, it's Dad," I called out, knocking on the doorframe. Maybe they were in the backyard or upstairs with music playing. Kids could be loud. Perhaps they simply hadn't heard. The silence stretched on. I stepped back and looked at the house properly for the first time. The rosebush by the front window had browned at the edges. Petals scattered across the walkway like discarded confetti. When had Matilda stopped tending her garden? She used to send me photos of her roses every spring. I walked around to the side gate and peered through the slats into the backyard. Empty. Patio furniture lay under a fine layer of dust, and the small vegetable patch she had been so proud of had withered to brown stems. A child's tricycle lay on its side near the back door, one wheel still spinning lazily in the breeze. Strange, I muttered, returning to the front porch. The mailbox overflowed with envelopes and packages, some spilling onto the ground. I picked up a few pieces. Electric bills from 3 weeks ago, advertising circulars, a package addressed to Gary that seemed to have baked in the California sun for days. The latest postmark I could see was 10 days old. My heart started racing, that familiar engineer's instinct kicking in. When systems fail, there's always a logical explanation. I just needed more data. I cupped my hands against the living room window, pressing my face to the glass. Dark inside, curtains drawn, no movement, no television flickering, no sounds of life. The house felt abandoned, yet I could make out familiar shapes. Matilda's art easel in the corner, Jack's toy cars scattered on the coffee table. Excuse me, are you looking for the McCoys? I spun around to see an elderly woman in a sun hat, garden shears in her gloved hands, approaching. Yes, I'm Harley Sims, Matilda's father. Have you seen them lately? She paused, wetting her forehead with the back of her wrist. Come to think of it, no. Been awfully quiet over there. Usually hear the children playing in the morning. She trailed off, studying my face. Is everything all right? I asked. I'm sure it is. But even to me, my voice sounded unconvincing. They probably went on vacation visiting family. She didn't look convinced either. Well, I hope they're okay. Such a sweet family. As she returned to gardening, I sank heavily onto Matilda's front step, the wooden jewelry box still clutched in my hands. The pieces weren't fitting together. Matilda would have mentioned a vacation during our last call. Gary was obsessed with social media. He would have posted photos from wherever they had gone. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Matilda's Facebook page. The last post was 6 weeks ago, a photo of Emma's school art project. Before that, nearly 2 months of silence. My daughter, who used to document every family dinner and weekend adventure, had gone completely quiet. The afternoon shadows grew longer as I sat there, staring at the silent house. A jogger ran past, earbuds in, entirely absorbed in her own world. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower started, its sound normal and reassuring, yet completely at odds with the dread swelling in my chest. I checked under the welcome mat, then felt around the rim of the flower pot by the door. No hidden key. The front door handle turned uselessly in my grip. Locked, of course. Okay, Harley, I muttered aloud, trying to steady myself. Don't panic. There's a logical explanation. But as I sat on that porch step, surrounded by signs of neglect and abandonment, I couldn't shake the feeling that my surprise visit had uncovered something far worse than an empty house. It was time to call Matilda. My thumb hovered over her contact for a moment before pressing it, listening to the dial tone with growing anxiety. 1 ring, 2, 3, straight to voicemail. Hi. You've reached Matilda. Leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Her cheerful recorded voice made my chest tighten. I hung up and dialed again. Same result. Voicemail after 4 rings. Either her phone was dead or she was deliberately not answering. 3rd attempt. I let it ring longer, determined to leave a message if nothing else. Hello, this is Dad. I'm in Los Angeles. I wanted to surprise you, but nobody's home. Then a voice, male, professional, cautious. Matilda, this is Dr. Rivera from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Are you a family member of Matilda McCoy? The world tilted sideways. I gripped the phone tighter, my other hand pressing against the porch railing for support. What? Yes, I'm her father. Why do you have her phone? Where is she? A pause stretched on. Mr. Sims, I'm very sorry to inform you that your daughter is currently in our intensive care unit. She's been receiving treatment for advanced cancer, and her condition is critical. The words hit me like physical blows. Cancer. Critical. My vision blurred at the edges. That's impossible, I strangled out. I spoke to her 3 months ago. She was fine, just tired from chasing the kids around. Sir, I understand this is shocking news. Stage 4 cancer can progress rapidly, and patients often don't share their diagnosis with family immediately. She's been under our care for several weeks now. Several weeks. The neglected garden, the overflowing mailbox, the silent house, it all clicked with terrible clarity. Where's Gary? Her husband. Where are my grandchildren? Unfortunately, I cannot comment on other family matters, Mr. Sims. Patient confidentiality prevents me from sharing those details. But I strongly recommend you come to the hospital immediately. Your daughter has been asking for you. My hands shook violently, barely able to hold the phone. What's the address? I'm coming now. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, 8700 Beverly Boulevard. Ask for the Oncology Intensive Care Unit when you arrive. Dr. Rivera's line went dead. I stared at the phone in my trembling hands. The afternoon sun suddenly felt too bright, too warm, too ordinary for a world where my daughter was dying and I hadn't known. 3 months ago, she said she was tired. And I, wrapped up in my own grief, my own isolation, had missed every warning sign. The wooden jewelry box slipped from my lap, clattering on the porch steps. Martha's ring was supposed to pass. To Emma someday. But what if there wouldn't be a someday? What if I was too late? I stood up too quickly, my head spinning, and stumbled toward the street with mechanical precision, heart hammering, mind racing, each step carrying the weight of lost time. I checked under the welcome mat, then ran my hand around the rim of the flower pot by the door. No hidden key. The front door handle turned uselessly in my grip. Locked, naturally. Okay, Harley, I muttered aloud, trying to steady my nerves. Don't panic. There must be a logical explanation. But as I sat on the porch step, surrounded by signs of neglect and abandonment, I couldn't shake the feeling that my surprise visit had revealed something far worse than an empty house. It was time to call Matilda. My thumb hovered over her contact before I pressed it, listening to the dial tone with mounting anxiety. 1 ring, 2, 3, straight to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Matilda. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Her cheerful recorded voice tightened my chest. I hung up and dialed again. Same result. Voicemail after 4 rings. Either her phone was dead, or she was deliberately avoiding me. A third attempt, letting it ring longer, determined to leave a message if nothing else. Hello, this is Dad. I'm in Los Angeles. I wanted to surprise you, but nobody's home. Then a voice, male, professional, cautious. Matilda, this is Dr. Rivera from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Are you a family member of Matilda McCoy? The world tilted sideways. I gripped the phone tighter, my other hand pressing against the porch railing for support. What? Yes, I'm her father. Why do you have her phone? Where is she? A long pause. Mr. Sims, I'm very sorry to inform you that your daughter is currently in our intensive care unit. She's been receiving treatment for advanced cancer, and her condition is critical. The words hit like physical blows. Cancer. Critical. My vision blurred. That's impossible, I choked out. I spoke to her 3 months ago. She was fine, just tired from chasing the kids around. Sir, I understand this is shocking news. Stage 4 cancer can progress rapidly, and patients often don't share the diagnosis with family immediately. She's been under our care for several weeks. The neglected garden, overflowing mailbox, silent house, all clicked into place with horrific clarity. Where's Gary? Her husband? Where are my grandchildren? I cannot comment on other family matters, Mr. Sims. Patient confidentiality prevents me from sharing those details. But I strongly recommend you come to the hospital immediately. Your daughter has been asking for you. My hand shook violently, barely holding the phone. What's the address? I'm coming now. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, 8700 Beverly Boulevard. Ask for the Oncology Intensive Care Unit when you arrive. Dr. Rivera's line went dead. I stared at the phone in trembling hands. The afternoon sun suddenly felt too bright, too warm, too normal for a world where my daughter was dying, and I had been unaware. 3 months ago, she said she was tired. Tired. And I, buried in grief and isolation, had missed every warning dot. The wooden jewelry box slipped from my lap, clattering on the porch steps. Martha's ring was meant for Emma someday. But what if there was no someday? What if I was too late? I stood up too quickly, head spinning, and stumbled toward the street with mechanical precision. A taxi? I needed a taxi. The hospital address burned in my mind. 8700 Beverly Boulevard, Oncology Intensive Care Unit. As I flagged down a yellow cab, one thought circled endlessly. How had I become the kind of father who learns his daughter is dying from a stranger on the phone? The taxi door slammed with a finality that seemed to close the old chapter of my life. I handed the driver the crumpled hospital address, hands still trembling. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, please. As fast as you can. Traffic's heavy. This time of day, sir? I'll do my best. His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, noting my distress. Emergency. My daughter. She's dying. The words lodged in my throat. The leather seat beneath me felt foreign. Too smooth, too normal for someone whose world had just collapsed. Through the window, Louisiana traffic moved in its usual chaotic rhythm. People commuting, picking up groceries, living ordinary lives, while mine spiraled into nightmare, cancer. Stage 4, critical. I pulled out the worn photograph again, studying Matilda's laughing face. How had I missed the signs? That last call replayed endlessly. Just tired, Dad, really tired. The way she'd said it, carrying some invisible weight, I had blamed it on motherhood, work stress, the ordinary exhaustion of raising 2 children. What kind of father was I? The taxi lurched forward through stop-and-go traffic, memories flooding in. Matilda taking her first unsteady steps across the old kitchen floor, arms outstretched, complete trust in her eyes. Teaching her to ride a bike in the park, running beside her until she pedaled 50 yards solo. Her high school graduation, the proud smile as she accepted her diploma. Walking her down the aisle 2 years ago, Gary had promised to love and protect her. I'll take care of your daughter, sir, he had said confidently, shaking my hand. Where was he now? Why hadn't he called when she got sick? I dialed Gary for the 4th time, straight to voicemail again. Gary, this is Harley. I'm in LA. Matilda's in the hospital. Call me immediately. The message felt inadequate, too polite for the rage building inside me. My daughter was fighting for her life, and her husband was nowhere to be found. Faster, please, I urged the driver. She's only 38 with 2 little kids. So young, he murmured, accelerating through a yellow light. I have a daughter, too. Same age. It breaks the heart. Through the window, palm trees swayed against the afternoon sky, indifferent to human suffering. Martha used to say LA looked like paradise but felt lonely. She had been right, just as she had been right about so many things. If she were alive, she would have sensed something was wrong, pressed for details, maybe even flown here herself. But Martha was gone, and I had spent 5 years drowning in grief instead of being the father my daughter needed. I folded and refolded the hospital address, creasing it into a small square. The paper felt real, the only solid thing in a day that had become surreal. This morning, I had been a retired engineer planning a surprise visit. Now, I was racing through LA traffic to see my dying daughter. The taxi arrived at the hospital just as evening painted the sky purple. Modern glass and steel rose before me, imposing and clinical. Through the windows, I saw people moving purposefully. Doctors, nurses, families grappling with their own crises. Here we are, sir, the driver said gently. Good luck with your daughter. I handed him cash, grabbed my overnight bag, and stood on the sidewalk as he drove off. Automatic doors whispered open, revealing a lobby adorned with colorful art installations that seemed almost obscenely cheerful. I approached the information desk, where a kind-faced woman looked up expectantly. Oncology Intensive Care Unit, I managed. My daughter, Matilda McCoy. ID, please, and I'll need to sign in. She handed me a visitor badge and clipboard. Take the elevator to the 7th floor. My hands shook as I wrote my name. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor number a countdown to devastation. When the doors opened, the antiseptic smell hit immediately, a unique mixture of cleaning supplies and human suffering. Dr. Rivera waited at the nurse's station, compact with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Sims, I'm glad you made it safely. How is she? The question came out hoarse. Stable for now. The chemotherapy hasn't been as effective as we hoped, but she's responding to the current protocol. He gestured down the hallway. She's been asking for family. She'll be relieved. You're here. We walked past rooms filled with the soft beeping of machines and hushed conversations. Through one doorway, an elderly man held his wife's hand. Through another, a young mother read to a child with a bald head. Room 712, Dr. Rivera said softly. I should warn you, the illness has taken a physical toll, but mentally, emotionally, she's very much herself. Nothing could have prepared me. Matilda lay propped up in her hospital bed, connected to monitors tracking her heartbeat in steady green lines. IV tubes snaked from her arms to bags of clear fluid hanging on metal poles. She looked so small, fragile, a shadow of the vibrant woman who had danced at her wedding. But when she saw me, her face transformed with the most beautiful smile. Daddy. The word was a whisper, but hit like a freight train. I crossed the room in 3 steps and gathered her carefully into my arms, afraid I might break her. She felt bird-like, sharp angles where there used to be soft curves. Oh, sweetheart. Tears I had been holding since the phone call finally spilled over. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I didn't want to worry you, she breathed against my shoulder. You were still grieving, Mom, and I thought I could handle it myself. I pulled back, smoothing the thin hospital blanket around her shoulders just as I used to tuck her in when monsters lurked under her bed. Why didn't you tell me? We could have fought this together. Her eyes filled with tears. The doctor had said he was clearly screening my calls. I typed a quick message. Your wife is in ICU. Call immediately. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. A second attempt from my phone yielded the same result. Then I noticed Matilda's phone resting on the bedside table, plugged in and charging. Maybe if I called from her number. I glanced back at her sleeping form, then carefully picked up her phone. Gary's contact appeared in her recent calls. But the last incoming call was 2 days old. 2 days since he'd bothered to check on his dying wife. Third attempt from Matilda's phone. Straight to voicemail again. Frustrated, I nearly set the phone down when a notification lit the screen. Instagram. The app was still open, logged in as Matilda. At the top of the feed, Gary's story glowed with a red circle. New content. Tapped it without thinking. The first image froze my blood. A luxury yacht deck gleaming in sunlight, champagne glasses catching the rays, a manicured hand holding a flute in a toast. Timestamp, 2 hours ago. I swiped to the next story. Gary's. Face filled the screen, grinning, arms around 2 men I didn't recognize. All wore expensive sunglasses, perfectly groomed, as if pulled from a magazine. Behind them, the Pacific stretched endlessly. Caption, living my best life with the boys, posted 90 minutes ago. While I'd been watching my daughter suffer, he was partying. Rage blurred my vision, but I continued documenting. Screenshot after screenshot. Gary lounging on pristine cushions, diving off the yacht platform, raising another champagne glass against a sunset. The final story video showed him speaking to the camera. Sometimes you just need a few days away from reality to clear your head. Reality? His wife was hooked to machines. I checked the location tags. Marina del Rey, less than an hour from The hospital. My hands shook as I typed. I see you're having fun. Your wife is dying. Call me. Another. I have screenshots. We need to talk. Still no response. I paced quietly, careful not to wake Matilda, mind racing. Yacht rentals like that cost thousands per day. Gary was a successful business consultant, but not the rent yachts for fun kind. Where was the money coming from? Looking at Matilda's peaceful face, I whispered promises I should have made months ago. I won't let him hurt you anymore, sweetheart. Daddy's here now, and I'm going to fix this. The monitor beeped steadily, each tone a heartbeat wasted by Gary while he partied. How long had this been going on? How long had she suffered alone? I returned to the phone, screenshotting methodically. My engineer's mind took over. Document evidence, build the case, find leverage points. Gary had assumed he could abandon my daughter. He'd made one critical error. He had a father who would burn the world down to protect her. My phone buzzed. Gary's name appeared. I glanced at Matilda once more, her thin face relaxed in sleep, and stepped into the hallway. Time for a conversation, I whispered, brushing a kiss on her forehead. I'll be right back, sweetheart. Just going to get some coffee. The elevator carried me down, past signs directing visitors. The cafeteria was mostly empty, save for a few scattered staff grabbing late meals. I bought coffee I didn't want and found a quiet corner, staring at that yacht photo again. Gary's carefree grin, pristine deck, champagne glinting in sunlight. How could a business consultant afford a $15,000 yacht rental? A memory struck cold. 1 year ago, Gary had approached me about family emergencies. Medical bills, Emma's dental work, house repairs. Could I give temporary access to my backup account? Just until things stabilized, he'd promised. Matilda wouldn't need financial stress. I'd been impressed by his thoughtfulness. Hand shaking, I opened my banking app, reviewing the shared account I'd set up for emergencies. Transaction history loaded slowly, each line reading like evidence in a trial. Marina del Rey, Yacht. Charters, $15,000 yesterday, Malibu, $850, 3 days ago, Beverly Hills Mercedes service, $2,400, last week, Rodeo Drive shopping, $3,200, 10 days ago. The pattern was clear. While my daughter wasted away in a hospital bed, he lived extravagantly. Every dollar from my account. Each designer purchase, each expensive dinner, each indulgence, funded by the father of the woman he abandoned. He screenshot everything. My engineer's mind mapped it all. Dates, amounts, patterns. As Matilda's condition worsened, his spending escalated. First rounds of chemo, rodeo drive shopping, hair falling out, 5-star dinners. Rage threatened to consume me, but cold calculation would serve Matilda better. I grabbed a notebook, writing key information, account numbers, transaction IDs, a systematic plan to cut off Gary's financial lifeline. He had made one critical mistake, using my money to fund his betrayal. Time to show what happens when you cross a Texas engineer who spent 40 years solving complex problems. The hospital cafeteria hummed quietly. Vending machines, distant overhead pages, exhausted staff murmuring. But I wasn't there. My mind was in full strategic mode, identifying vulnerabilities, planning countermeasures. Gary thought he could party through his wife's terminal illness on my dime. He was about to learn consequences could arrive with mathematical precision. I finished my cold coffee, pocketed the notebook, and planned my first step. Immediate financial severance. Cut off access before he could spend another cent. Step 2 would be more personal. I found a quiet alcove near the hospital chapel, seated with phone and notebook spread before me. Irony wasn't lost, planning financial warfare steps from a place of sanctuary I had no intention of seeking. The bank's emergency line answered on the third ring. First National Emergency Services. This is Amanda speaking. How can I help you tonight? The bank representative asked. This is Harley Sims, account holder. I need to revoke all authorized access on my accounts immediately, I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. I'll need to verify your identity. First, Mr. Sims, can you provide your social security number and your mother's maiden name? I rattled off the information while glancing at my notes. 45 years of banking with this institution meant they recognized my voice, but protocol was protocol. Thank you. I see Gary McCoy has had authorized access to your backup savings account since April 2022. Are you requesting full revocation? Immediate and permanent. Transfer all remaining funds to my primary secured account. I must inform you this. Action is irreversible and may affect any automated payments or services linked to that account. Are you certain? Cancel everything associated with his access. Every automatic payment, every linked service, every recurring charge, I said, crisp and final. One moment while I processed these changes. The hold music played as I watched a security guard walk past, nodding respectfully. The hospital continued its evening rhythm while I systematically dismantled Gary's financial foundation. Mr. Sims, I've revoked Mr. McCoy's access to the savings account and initiated transfer of remaining funds. That's $127,000 moving to your primary account. I also see 3 credit cards with his name as authorized user. Shall I cancel those too? $127,000. He's been living off my money for 2 years while my daughter suffered. Cancel every card. Remove him as authorized user on all accounts. Delete his contact from emergency notifications. Processing now. Done. Mr. McCoy will receive notice that his cards are deactivated and any attempted transactions will be declined. Anything else? Set up fraud alerts if anyone tries to access these accounts using his information. Already in place, sir. Confirmation emails will arrive shortly. I hung up and opened my banking app to verify. Access revoked, credit cards canceled, automatic payments terminated. The digital paper trail showed Gary's financial lifeline severed with precision. My phone buzzed with the first confirmation, emails. Each notification felt like justice in digital form. I snapped the notebook closed and pocketed my phone. The engineering problem was solved. Identify the system failure, isolate the faulty component, remove it permanently. Gary's access to my resources now existed only in his own imagination, standing comma. I felt lighter than I had in hours. Not because Matilda's illness was gone, that burden remained, but because the torture of unknowingly funding her abandonment was over. Gary could keep his yacht tonight. Tomorrow, when his cards declined and calls went unanswered, he'd learn what happens when a parasite loses its host. I walked back to the elevator, past the slightly ajar chapel door, past the nurse's station, where evening shift changes were underway. Life continued, normal and routine, while one small piece of justice had quietly been delivered. Matilda was awake when I returned, staring at the ceiling with that distant expression I'd seen too often. Today, the room glowed softly from the monitors, creating an intimate bubble separate from the harsh hospital world. "Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" I asked, setting down my untouched coffee and pulling a chair close to her bedside. "Better now that you're here," she said, turning toward me. Something had shifted during my absence. "Dad, I need to tell you something about Gary." She reached for my hand. It was ice cold despite the warm room. "Take your time, honey. I'm here to listen." He changed after Jack was born. Started saying I wasn't contributing enough financially. The freelance design work got harder when Jack was colicky, and Gary said I was a burden. I clenched my free hand beneath the hospital blanket but kept my voice gentle. "A burden? You're raising 2 children." He said the medical bills were ruining his future plans, that he'd married a partner, not a patient, she whispered, shame coloring her cheeks. When the cancer diagnosis came, he just shut down, stayed out later, made excuses about work meetings. What kind of man abandons his sick wife? I couldn't hide all my anger. I thought of how I'd hoped that if I recovered quickly, if I didn't complain, maybe he'd return. Be the father Emma and Jack deserved. Tears slid down her cheeks. "But he's not coming back, is he, Dad?" I smoothed her hair back from her forehead the same way I used to when she was 7 and terrified of thunderstorms. "Sweetheart, you are perfect exactly as you are. Any man who can't see that doesn't deserve you, I said softly. I feel so foolish for defending him all these years, making excuses for why he never called, why he was always too busy for family visits. Matilda squeezed my hand. Weakly. You were right about him from the start, weren't you? I had never spoken ill of Gary to her directly, but fathers notice what wives sometimes overlook. I admitted silently one error. I thought he at least loved her, even if I didn't. Like him, I never imagined he'd abandon her to fight this alone. The hardest part is explaining to Emma why Daddy isn't here, she said, voice breaking. She keeps asking when he'll come home. A nurse quietly entered to check vitals, giving us a brief pause. When she left, I leaned closer. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore. Focus on healing. I'll handle everything else. Dad, she began, hesitant. You're not asking. I'm telling you, your only job is getting better. Leave Gary. Leave the finances. Leave everything else to me. I kissed her forehead. You'll never have to deal with his selfishness again. Exhaustion overtook her, the emotional release draining her energy. Her eyelids drooped as she fought to stay present. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. Don't let anger at Gary consume you. I need my dad, not another angry man in my life. I tucked the blanket around her as her breathing deepened. I promise, sweetheart. Rest now. But as I watched her drift to sleep, I knew the promise might be harder to keep than I hoped. The man who had vowed to love and protect my daughter had stolen her money, abandoned her in crisis, and broken our grandchildren's hearts. Some wrongs require more than forgiveness. They demand consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Marina Del Rey area code. I glanced at Matilda, sleeping peacefully, then moved toward the window. Hello? I said, voice. Icy. Harley, what did you do? My cards were declined in front of everyone. Gary's voice cracked with panic and humiliation. Fix this immediately. Where are you right now? I ignored his demand. That's not your business. Listen. Old man! Restore my access now. My daughter is dying in a hospital bed, he barked. I let the words drop like stones. And you're partying on a yacht with my money. Silence. Then sputtering. How did you... That's not... This is business. Networking, he stammered. Through the phone, I could hear the party. Music, laughter, waves lapping against the hull. The sound of a man living it up on someone else's dime while his wife fought for her life. $15,000 for a yacht rental, Gary. My $15,000? I said quietly, aware Matilda might stir behind me. You can't just cut me off. I have rights. I'm her husband. You were her husband, I corrected, turning to see Matilda's eyes open, finally understanding. You made your choice when you chose champagne over chemotherapy appointments. Listen, you don't understand the pressure I've been under, he said. What pressure, Gary? I snapped. The pressure of having unlimited access to your bank account while abandoning your family, I said, voice hardening. His tone shifted, calculating. Restore my access or I'll file for divorce and take the kids. I'll make sure Matilda loses everything in court. That was your mistake the moment you threatened my grandchildren, I said quietly, my tone cutting deep. Behind me, I heard Matilda's sharp intake of breath. Fully awake now, she listened as she finally heard her husband's true nature. Selfish, threatening, utterly without remorse. I know exactly where you are, I continued, calm and deliberate. I know exactly what you've been doing. I know every dollar of my money you've wasted while my daughter fought for her life. And now I know the kind of man who threatens to take children from a dying mother. You can't do this to me. I have a reputation to protect. People are watching. Yes, they are watching. Watching as your credit cards are declined because you're a parasite who can't even manage your own finances. Gary's voice cracked. Harley, wait. Let's talk this through. I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. I'll come to the hospital. We can... I looked at Matilda, tears streaming down her face. Not sadness, relief. Finally seeing who she'd married clearly. Finally witnessing her father stand as the protector she needed. "No, Gary," I said softly. "We can't work this out." Silence stretched between us, his panicked breathing loud in my ear. Behind him, I could hear his world unraveling. Yacht engines stalling, voices arguing over payments, the party dissolving into chaos. "Harley, are you there? Please, I can explain." I turned from the window and sat by Matilda's bedside, taking her hand, keeping the phone pressed to my ear, feeling her fingers squeeze mine tightly in support. "You chose a yacht over your dying wife. Parties over your children. My money over your family's future," I said, voice dropping low, each word sharp as a blade. "You made your choice. Now live with the consequences." "I can change. I'll be different. I'll come home and take care of everyone," he begged. "If you ever come near my daughter or grandchildren again, I will destroy you completely," I said. Matilda's grip tightened, her eyes wide, finally seeing the protective father she needed all along. "Financially, legally, socially, I will make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." "You can't do this. I have rights. I'm her husband. You abandoned your sick wife for yacht parties. You stole from her father to fund your selfish lifestyle. You threatened to take children from their dying mother," I continued, letting every word land. "What court do you think will side with you?" His voice broke. "I have nowhere to go. My friends won't even look at me after the card issue. The yacht company, they might call the police. I made mistakes, but everyone deserves a second chance. You had a second chance every day for the past 6 months. Every day you weren't here. Every day you skipped her treatments. Every day you chose parties over family," I said, letting the truth settle between us. Matilda cried softly, but these were tears of liberation. 20 years of excuses for Gary's behavior had ended, and now she finally heard her father speak the truth. She had been too scared to speak up. "Please, Harley, I'm begging you. Just enough to get home and we can—" "No." The word lingered in the air like a final verdict. "You're finished, Gary. Finished with my money. Finished with my family. Finished hurting those I love." "But I have nowhere to—" I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. The why gesture felt as definitive as slamming a door. Then I sat beside Matilda's bed and drew her hand to my lips, pressing soft kisses onto her knuckles just as I had when she was little and frightened. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. "You never need to thank me for keeping you safe, sweetheart. That's what fathers do." She squeezed my hand tighter. I had been terrified to leave him, afraid of facing the children alone, afraid of admitting the terrible mistake I had made. "You're not alone. Never will be again." I brushed her hair back from her forehead. "And it wasn't your fault. Every selfish choice, every cruel word, every moment he put himself above his family, that's on him, not you." For the first time since arriving in Los Angeles, Matilda smiled, a real, hopeful smile, not one shadowed by fear. "Rest now," I whispered. "Tomorrow we start building your future, a future where no one can ever hurt you again." She closed her eyes, her breathing steady and calm, deeper than I had seen all day. The monitoring equipment beside us ticked away, counting heartbeats, counting moments, marking the start of a new life. Outside, Los Angeles glittered in the night, indifferent to one small family's triumph over cruelty. Inside room 712, justice had been served, and healing had begun. A year later, in 2025, sunlight poured through the kitchen window of our new Texas home, casting golden squares across the hardwood where Emma's art supplies lay in cheerful disorder. Children's laughter floated in from the backyard, blending with the rhythmic chopping of vegetables as Matilda prepared lunch. I paused in the doorway, watching my daughter move with the energy and grace that had returned gradually over the months. Her hair had grown thicker, framing a face glowing with health and true happiness. The haunted look is gone, I thought. She was the confident woman I'd raised, the one buried under years of Gary's manipulation. "Dad, you're lurking." Again, she teased without turning. That familiar, playful tone said everything I needed about her recovery. "Just appreciating the view, sweetheart. Can't believe you're really here." Through the window, I saw Jack teaching Emma to throw. A perfect spiral, their grandfather's techniques passed on with careful patience. At 8 and 6, they had adjusted to their new life, resilient now that they were safe. The divorce had been swift and decisive. Gary's custody threats evaporated once his lawyer saw the recorded calls and bank statements. A man who abandoned a terminally ill wife while spending her father's money on yachts was hardly a sympathetic figure in family court. "Grandpa," Emma called through the screen door. "Come show Jack how to catch better." "In a minute, honey," I replied, turning to Matilda. "How are you feeling today?" "Really feeling?" She set down her knife, meeting my eyes, and I saw what Dr. Rivera had confirmed months ago: complete remission. "I feel like myself. Again, maybe stronger than before." The timer chimed, and she pulled a pan of cornbread from the oven, Martha's recipe, a tradition worth preserving. "Remember what you used to tell me during storms?" she asked, placing the hot pan on the cooling rack. "That storms pass, but families last forever." "You were right." She hugged me tightly the way she used to before illness and fear had created distance. I had never said, "I told you so," about her ex-husband, and never would. The restraining order said more than words ever could. "Dad," Emma scored a touchdown. Jack burst through the screen door, grass-stained knees and pure joy. Behind him, Emma performed a victory dance that would have made her grandmother laugh. "Touchdown celebration calls for extra cornbread," Matilda declared, slicing generous squares that steamed in the afternoon sun. As evening painted the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink, the four of us sat on the front porch swing Martha had loved, salvaged from our old house. Emma dozed on my shoulder while Jack peppered me with questions about the emerging stars. "Will you tell us the story of how you saved Mom again?" Emma mumbled. "Sweetheart, your mom saved herself. I just cleared the way." "Like the bad man who went away." "Exactly." Matilda reached over, squeezing my hand, a gesture of gratitude, love, and the unbreakable bond forged through crisis. We had chosen unbreakable. This is what winning looks like, I thought, watching my grandchildren's eyelids grow heavy. Not the brief moment of victory, though Gary's tearful pleas had been satisfying, but the long years of quiet happiness afterward. Ordinary evenings where no one fights for their life, no one betrays, and the only tension is whether Jack finishes his vegetables. The stars appeared one by one, the same constellations Martha and I had watched decades ago when Matilda was Emma's age. Some things change. Marriages end, people disappoint, illness challenges fairness. But some things endure. The love between father and daughter, the resilience of children, the satisfaction of protecting what matters most. Tomorrow, Matilda would work on her design project while the kids attended their new school. I'd tend Martha's garden and maybe begin a woodworking project for Emma's dollhouse. Normal life, the life worth fighting for. Tonight, though, we were together under the vast Texas sky. 3 generations tested by fire, finally safe in the peace we had earned.